you're watching Gearz, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, one of the great things about the automotive world is that there's a lot of ways to get into a project vehicle. You can pick up an old beater and get it running. You can restore an old classic. Or you can build some sort of hot rod or muscle car. And all of these are great, but they all involve finding some sort of junk and dragging it home and bringing it back to life. Unfortunately, not everybody's into that. Some people want to build something classic out of all new stuff, and that's where the component or kit car comes in. And you don't have to look very hard to see one, because a lot of the muscle cars, trucks, hot rods, and Cobras that you see out there at car shows and events started out as some sort of kit. However, what you don't see a lot of is the exotic mid-engine cars being built, because there are just a few companies that offer them. Well, fortunately, that's changing, because what we have here is a new replica that's coming out from a place called Retroformance, and it's based on the legendary McLaren M6GT. Now, we've already blown this thing all apart and gone in depth on the Strickland Racing all-aluminum monocoque chassis and all of the great suspension components that are being bolted to it. So today we're going to jump into the heart of this thing. That means putting in the engine, laying out the drivetrain, laying out some other components, hopefully even showing you the body that goes down on this thing. So let's get busy. Okay, if you've got a mid-engine car where people are going to be looking down at the engine, man, you got to have some sort of seriously cool engine. And the M6GT is designed to fit any kind of a small block. Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever. So you have some options here. But instead of going with the modern LS or a Hemi or even a Coyote, we're going to go with the more traditional small block Ford. But not the type of small block Ford you might be thinking. This is one of John Kaase's lethal P38 small block Fords based on a 351. And the first thing that grabs your attention is the super cool cross-ram fuel injection. But the real power is in the heads. With the location of the intake and exhaust ports the only limiting factors, Kaase completely redesigned the P38 head with reworked ports and canted valves. This not only allows the valves to open toward the center of the cylinder for better airflow, but also allows the use of larger valves for better flow. Then bolt those heads and that cross-ram intake down on a dart block and stuff it with Lanati forged crank and rods and diamond pistons and punch it out to 427 cubic inches, and you've got an engine that pulls hard all the way to a 7,000 RPM redline. But it's not all top end. With increased low and mid-range torque, this engine dynoed at 618 horsepower and an amazing 623 foot-pounds, all on pump gas, making this the perfect engine for an M6GT replica. Now, you may not need something quite this hot or exotic in your project, but that's the cool thing about Kaase. It can build you pretty much whatever you want. Using front and rear motor plates, the engine bolts into the chassis and becomes an integral part of the structure, tying the rear rails together. Now, another major component to any mid-engine car is a transaxle. And on this car, Retroformance is using this Audi O1X box. Now, it's a good box. It's rated at about 400 horsepower, which makes it a little light for the engine that we've got here. But that shouldn't be a problem if we're out on a road course or driving it on the road. However, we get it on the drag strip with some sticky tires, this might be a problem. So we'll need to keep that in mind or upgrade it. But for now, I think it's going to work.
In a world of economic uncertainty, there will always be a need for quality tools and people who can use them. That's why becoming a Cornwell tool dealer is one of the best career moves you can make. With routes available all across the nation, it's a great way to be your own boss. Supply high-quality tools to professionals and make some real money. If you're tired of working for someone else, have the drive to succeed, and want a career that can be successful no matter what happens on Wall Street, there's a Cornwell tool truck with your name on the side.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where we are putting together this new M6GT replica from Retroformance. Now, so far, we've stuffed 600 horsepower of John Kaase small block into a lightweight aluminum chassis in true McLaren fashion. So now we need to do something about the exhaust. Now, in typical header thinking, you have a right side and a left side that bolts to either side of the engine. Then it takes the exhaust down and out the back of the car. Well, on a mid-engine car, you can't do that because, as you can see, there's frame rails in the way and suspension. So you've got to take the exhaust up. But you can't go too high because, remember, there's a body coming back here. So you've got this little sweet spot right here to take all of the exhaust. And that's where the bundle of snakes exhaust system comes in. Take a look. Designed for cars like the GT40, the Chaparrals, the McLarens, and other mid-engine cars of the 60s, the bundle of snakes was one of the coolest looking exhaust systems ever created. But there's a lot more going on here than just looks, and you can't find these just anywhere. So we went to a place called GP Headers, who specializes in all kinds of stainless steel custom headers for the turbo and import world, the tractor pullers, drag racers, even headers for Cobra kit cars. But one of their main specialties is the bundle of snakes exhaust system. Now, when you open up the box, you might be a little bit surprised because at first glance, it looks like just a bunch of random tubes. But if you look a little bit closer, you'll see that every pipe is uniquely shaped and bent. All of the seams are TIG welded, stainless steel construction. You got nice thick flanges for leak-proof seals. You've got special collectors with integral clamps. This is some nice workmanship. Now, as you probably figured, the bundle of snakes is assembled one pipe at a time on the engine. So it's important that you do this in the right order. And each pipe is marked to help you do that. So let's start putting on some snakes. Due to the tight tolerances, using exhaust studs will make it much easier to slide the individual pipes in place and bolt them on. As each pipe goes on, you can see they all terminate at the same area in the rear of the car. If you get one of them out of whack, it becomes evident pretty quick. The benefit of doing individual pipes like this is that it allows the pipes to fit together in an extremely low profile configuration. The final piece is the collectors that slide on and bring all the pipes together. And that's the magic of the bundle of snakes. You have the maximum flow in the lowest profile possible with the greatest visual impact. I mean, these things are awesome. Of course, we'll have GP headers finish out the exhaust system with some mufflers back here on out the back of the car once we have the body on. But at least now you can see what this thing is going to look like. And now we can start laying out the fuel system, the electrical, the plumbing, all of that kind of stuff. But before we do any of that, I know you're dying to see the body that's going down on this thing. So that's where we're going next.
If you like cars, if you like coffee, you're gonna love Gearz coffee cars. Because in each pack, you'll find a special blend of rich, robust coffee to get your blood pumping, as well as a collectible cartoon sticker and matching photo card of some of the wildest vehicles Stacey has built or featured over the years. Collect the whole series and be sure to keep an eye out for the ultra-rare Strange Brew card that are added to random packages to keep things interesting. It's Gearz coffee cars, the best bean on the car scene.
In the 1970s, a unique phenomenon called the kit car appeared on the automotive scene. And the idea was to supply a kit that would allow a person to build a replica of a classic car in their home shop. And Dave Gossett with DeVicki Limited has been building replicas since the 1970s. And when it comes to reproduction bodies, he's pretty much seen it all.
You know, specialty cars were fiberglass in the cars that I was interested in, mainly the Auburn Boattail Speedster,
Yeah.
and of course replica Duesenbergs, but dimensionally correct ones.
Yeah.
And then of course the Cobra.
Yeah. And this was back, is this in the 70s or?
Correct.
Yeah. However, those early kits suffered from lack of engineering and the availability of high-performance components. So most were just hacked up and never finished, leaving the kit car with a horrible reputation for quality.
The problem with glass cars back then is that it was really hard to get anybody to do the work at a level I considered correct. So we had no choice but to have our own fiberglass shop.
Fortunately, things are completely different with today's component cars. These feature state-of-the-art suspension components, crate engines, air conditioning, modern wiring and accessories, and custom-designed chassis. The bodies are different too. The fiberglass bodies from the 70s, yeah, those were pretty crappy compared to what you get today. The biggest change is in the construction and the materials used.
Yeah, what we're doing now is twice the tensile strength, has many improvements. We're building in isotalic DCPD blends, which have many advantages, one of which is that the solvents aren't entrapped in them like in a general purpose resin. The other thing in car building with laminate is that it has to be properly reinforced, which in the old days, they didn't have any idea of that, you know, as far as we have a complete framework done in white ash, same as they make a baseball bat out of, and that's used as an intermediary between the laminate and between the steel structure in the cowl.
Because of this, DeVicki has one of the most popular graffiti-style 32 Ford Coupes on the market. But his hidden passion has always been the exotic mid-engine cars.
I love this car.
So it made perfect sense to have DeVicki put together the first prototype body of this new M6GT replica. Now, it's important to note that the molds for this body were pulled off of an actual M6GT way back in the early 70s. So as far as accuracy, this is spot on. This is as close as you can get to an actual M6GT body. As you can see, it has the classic front section with pockets for the upper headlights and the lower driving lights, and the outer flange is for the clear Lexan covers. It has the front inlet that allows air to flow through the radiator. It has lower cooling ducts for the brakes, and it even has vents on top of the fenders that can be cut out to relieve air pressure at speed. The center section features the cockpit and the unique wraparound windshield. You get inner and outer doors, and you even have pockets to fit the flip-top filler caps for the fuel tanks. The details continue in the rear section with a small window for rear viewing, an engine area that will be trimmed to expose the engine and the exhaust, but will then be finished with a clear Lexan cover that flows into a subtle fastback and ends in a small spoiler and a taillight section. These unique curves and designs are all what made the M6GT such a cool looking car. So we definitely have the accuracy and the details that makes a good replica, But keep in mind, Retroformance's goal is not a perfect M6GT replica. No, they want to build a modern version of this car. So that means some changes need to be made. First off, if you look inside, you can tell that Bruce McLaren was not a very big guy. So to make room for more normal-sized people, this Batmobile seating has got to be dealt with. Now, keep in mind, this opening here is to service the front of the engine. But this bulkhead from here on down, this can just be flat. So all of this can go away. That'll help tremendously in fitting normal-sized people in the car. Now, the doors are another issue. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at this going, oh no, these look like gull-wing doors like on the Cheetah back there. No, on the McLaren, they actually flipped forward like this, which gave you much better access into the car. But as you can see, this door opening is small. So it would be easy to stretch the door opening and the wheelbase 3 or 4 inches and just give you more room into the car. And that's all stuff that Retroformance is thinking about doing. Now, I know this seems like a lot of stuff, but this is what's involved in bringing a quality replica to market. And I'm sure you'll agree the M6GT is worthy not only of a quality replica, but of being introduced to a whole new generation. And that's what this car is going to do.
If you like cars, if you like coffee, you're gonna love Gearz coffee cars. Because in each pack, you'll find a special blend of rich, robust coffee to get your blood pumping, as well as a collectible cartoon sticker and matching photo card of some of the wildest vehicles Stacey has built or featured over the years. Collect the whole series and be sure to keep an eye out for the ultra-rare Strange Brew card that are added to random packages to keep things interesting. It's Gearz coffee cars, the best bean on the car scene. Can't get enough Gearz? Make sure to check out the Tales of a Gearhead podcast, where Stacey brings a lifetime of automotive knowledge, friendships, and expertise to the listener. Also, check out our social media channels for updates and videos of Gearz projects, as well as special contests, giveaways, and events. If you have a vehicle you want to enter into What Are You Working On, go to staceydavid.com and submit it. There's also the online store and tons of other Gearhead information that will encourage you to get out there, build something, and go drive it. And now, Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
One important tool to have when you're doing any kind of engine work is something to remove and install a balancer. Now, back in the day, look at this. Most of your balancer removers looked like this. I mean, they would go over the top, they would latch on, you would tighten down that center nut, and they'd pull that balancer right off of there. Unfortunately, these modern balancers will not work with this sort of tool. You'll just destroy the balancer. This tool is only for balancers that require this 3-armed puller. So, for this, we need to move on a little bit. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple different installers here. This is a standard one. This is for a long reach, for getting into longer reach areas. Both are great tools to have in your toolbox, and both will install. But if you'll notice, these are both installers only. So they will install this, but they will not remove it. So if you need one tool that you can install and remove a modern balancer with, this is the one that I recommend. You can see this looks completely different than the other ones. Now, the way this works, this balancer has 3 threaded holes in it here. So we'll take this unit that has the bearing on it, and it goes face down. Then you take this center stud and you thread in this nub. This will butt up against your crankshaft. It goes like that. This goes over the top. Then you take 3 of the bolts out of here, thread them into those threaded holes until they're finger tight. Then you hold this with a wrench and you rotate this one, and it'll pull that balancer right off of there. Now, to install the balancer, it's a little different approach. You turn this plate around so the bearing is facing up. Then you take your center nut, select the piece here that has the threads that coincide with your crankshaft, thread it in there. Then you take this and thread it into your crankshaft until it's finger tight. Then you hold this with a wrench, you rotate this one, and it'll push that balancer right down onto your crankshaft. So as you can see, installing or removing a balancer, there's a lot more to that than just having the right tool. You have to understand the tools and you have to understand your application. Now, the good news is most of these can be rented at your local auto parts store, but that's not going to do you any good if you don't understand the tool or know what your application is. So hopefully this helps you out.
And now, what are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966. And Mouse Blocker, protecting your vehicle.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Clint, and he is from Illinois. And Clint is an automotive instructor at a high school in Illinois. Now, he says that his goal is to keep the students interested in cars. And frankly, the minivans and the Saturns and stuff that they're working on are pretty boring. So he likes to pick up project vehicles to keep their interest up. So their project is a 1988 Chevy S10, check it out. And he said their goal is to turn it into an autocross road race truck. Man, that's going to be awesome. So the first thing he had the students do is pull off the bed and the cab, clean up the chassis, and then they boxed the frame for strength. Now, he said this was a first-time deal for a lot of the students, so it was a great learning experience. Clint, that's awesome stuff, and that's some hardcore stuff. I'm so glad you're doing that with a high school class. Now, he said the goal is to drop a 383 stroker into this thing with a TKX 5-speed and a 9-inch rear end, and of course a performance suspension. Man, that thing's gonna be a mother. Now, special points to you for putting a 5-speed in there. That is awesome. Now, they're hoping to have the truck done soon, and as he said, doing burnouts in the parking lot. Yeah, I wish I would have had you as an instructor when I was in school, because they did not encourage burnouts when I was going to school, I'll tell you that. Now, he said he loves to do this type of teaching for the students because it's more involved than just doing a bolt-on deal, and it teaches them critical thinking, and that is the key. There needs to be more instructors teaching what you're teaching, Clint. That's awesome. Great project. So, to recognize such a great project, Clint, we're going to give you one of these super bead rollers from Woodward Fab. As you can see, this is a manual bead roller. Comes with a whole bunch of different size beads and flanges, and I guarantee you that you're going to use this when you're doing the work on that S10. Then we're going to set you up with a Gearz fender cover so you can protect the paint on something that you guys might be working on. Then we're going to set you up with a project planning book. Now, this will allow you to keep track of everything you're doing on that project, and it's also a great way to show those students how to keep a project organized and not lose track of it. Then we're going to give you a Sergeant Rock diecast, and we're also going to give you some Gearz coffee cars. This will allow you to brew up a couple pots of coffee and also see what collectible sticker there might be inside there. But there's more. We're also going to set you up with a complete mouse blocker setup. This is a unit for a vehicle and a unit to go in the shop to keep the rodents out of the whole area. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you want to get in on this and get your projects featured on the show, you got to send them to us. Go to our website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into What Are You Working On? The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation. Also, make sure you check out our social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all at Official Stacey David. YouTube is also the place to view all of your favorite Gearz episodes, as well as the Gearz Restoration Series and our full project builds that follow a project from beginning to end. And finally, if you're a radio person, be sure and check out our podcast, Tales of a Gearhead. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Hopefully you are inspired to get out there and work on your own project. And if you don't have a project, well, now is the perfect time to pick one up, because I guarantee you're going to have a great time working on it. We'll see you next time.